Carl Jung's maximum stunning discovery wasn't approximately intellectual illness or desires. It become approximately individuals who see and sense the whole thing that others leave out, and why this ability regularly ruins their lives. Those aren't psychics or mystics. They're normal people with an unusual gift. They are able to read the emotional ecosystem of any room, experience what human beings are simply thinking behind their phrases, and pick up on hidden tensions that everybody else ignores. They see through fake smiles, come across lies without trying, and experience the unstated problems in every relationship. Jung known as this capacity heightened notion, and he found something worrying about it. Music, the people who have this gift almost always turn out to be alone, exhausted, and misunderstood. No longer due to the fact they're mentally ill, however, because seeing the whole lot comes with a charge that most people never understand. These days, we will explore Jung's discovery about those highly perceptive people, why their gift often turns into their curse, and most significantly, how they can transform this burden into something first-rate. Music a more home, electric cutting, edge through my veins, not anything ever remains the equal, whispers floating through the air. Music it looks like we have such a lengthy manner to move I recognize. Lighting fixtures round your face, telling testimonies time erase. Each glance will become a map to the locations wherein you are trapped. Music, the affected person who started out it all. The tale starts in 1913 during one of the darkest periods of Jung's life. He had just damaged with Sigmund Freud, his mentor and father determined, and become going through his very own psychological disaster. It was throughout this time that an incredible affected person walked into his office. She turned into what Jung would later name an introverted intuitive, a person whose internal global became so wealthy and complex that the outer global regularly felt overwhelming. However, what made her special wasn't simply her introversion. It changed into her capacity to look directly via people. Within seconds of assembly a person, she ought to feel their emotional kingdom. No longer simply whether they were happy or sad, but the deeper currents, the resentment they had been hiding, the fear they would not admit, the loneliness they protected with busy interest. She could stroll right into a circle of relatives' dinner and immediately understand who changed into indignant at whom, who became keeping secrets, and what the actual dynamics have been below the well-mannered verbal exchange. Before everything, Jung thought she might be delusional. However, as he tested her observations in opposition to fact, he observed something remarkable. She became almost always right. While she said a person changed into depressed, regardless of their joyful demeanor, in addition, research proved it authentic. When she sensed hidden warfare in a seemingly satisfied marriage, the fact would eventually pop out. Jung wrote in his notes, "She sees what others cannot or will now not see. But in preference to being a blessing, this sight has grown to be her torment." The hassle wasn't that she became wrong about humans. The trouble changed into that she changed into proper, and no one wanted to listen it. Applause, music, good day, appearance. Does it appearance desirable? Why seeing the whole lot turns into a curse? Reflect on consideration on your daily interactions for a moment. How commonly do you participate in social situations that require a bit of pretending? The pressured smile at work whilst you're having a terrible day, the "I'm best" while someone asks how you are. The settlement to disregard apparent issues because addressing them would be uncomfortable. These social agreements, what Jung called collective unconscious contracts, are what permit companies to feature easily. We all agree to overlook sure things, to keep sure illusions, to pretend we don't note what we word. However, imagine you could not turn off your capability to look via these agreements. Imagine each faux smile became transparent to you. Every "I'm best" revealed the ache underneath. Each social gathering confirmed you all the hidden dynamics that everybody else turned into operating tough to disregard. This is the fact for tremendously perceptive human beings. They can't take part within the regular social contracts that maintain relationships relaxed. Whilst all of us else is taking part in small talk, they are aware of the melancholy their colleague is hiding. Whilst others are celebrating at a marriage, they could feel the doubt inside the bride's heart. Whilst the family is pretending the whole thing is normal, they feel the addiction, the affair, or the illness that no one will renown. Jung discovered that this creates an impossible state of affairs. If those perceptive people communicate up approximately what they see, they are categorized as negative, oversensitive, or troublemaking. In the event that they stay quiet, they feel like they're reciting a lie, participating in collective denial that is going towards the whole lot they perceive. Even worse, humans unconsciously sense while a person can see through their masks without understanding why they feel uncovered and uncomfortable around fantastically perceptive individuals. They might not consciously recognize that this individual sees their hidden ache or mystery disgrace. However, they feel it on some level, and in order that they shy away, growing distance, leaving the perceptive individual pressured and harmed. We're given a shell shed music on a paper, got a south aspect typed on a paper bag stated, "Do not you come back looking baby," sealed together with your lips proper music, that is wealthy broke, prevent nighttime teach forestall. Do not prevent no greater, music music rain on my window tapping like your crimson heel time, rain on my window tapping like your pink heel time. I divulge heart's contents to shadows, just that 47 line. Music, the four forms of notably perceptive human beings. As Jung worked with extra patients who had this gift, he noticed they fell into four distinct patterns. Knowledge which sort you are is crucial for getting to know a way to manipulate your perception. The first type is what Jung referred to as the emotional absorber. These people don't just see others' feelings, they feel them in their own bodies. While they are close to a person who's stressful, they become annoying. While they're around despair, they sense depressed. They may be like emotional sponges absorbing something emotions are of their surroundings. One in all Jung's sufferers defined it like this: I stroll right into a room happy, and within minutes, I am sporting feelings that are not mine. I go away circle of relatives gatherings exhausted, not from socializing, but from processing anyone else's unfelt feelings. The project for emotional absorbers is learning to differentiate between their personal feelings and what they have got picked up from others. Without this skill, they lose themselves completely, becoming mirrors of their environment in place of people with their own emotional life. The second type is the sample seer. These individuals have an uncanny ability to identify mental styles and are expecting in which they may lead. They are able to meet a brand new couple and understand inside minds whether or not the relationship will last. They can watch a person's conduct and expect with startling accuracy what troubles they will face inside the future. Jung documented one affected person who may want to predict divorces months before the couples themselves found out they had been in problem. She wasn't using common sense or evaluation. She changed into choosing up on diffused styles that her subconscious mind diagnosed, but could not absolutely provide an explanation for. The risk for pattern seers is they often experience cursed with undesirable expertise. They see the train wrecks coming, however, experience powerless to prevent them. Whilst they are trying to warn human beings, they are disregarded as pessimistic or jealous. The 1/3 kind is the frame reader. Those humans can sense the physical manifestations of mental states. They may feel a headache while speaking to someone who's repressing anger or belly ache round a person with hidden anxiety. They frequently know whilst someone is getting unwell earlier than any signs and symptoms seem. Jung discovered these people regularly have become healers or caregivers, interested in professions wherein their capability to feel physical distress was valued. However, without right barriers, they might literally make themselves sick from soaking up others' bodily tensions. The fourth and rarest kind is what Jung referred to as the pure intuitive. Those humans get hold of massive quantities of information, approximately others, however, warfare to organize or provide an explanation for it. They understand things without understanding how they recognize them. They have sturdy feelings approximately human beings and situations, however, cannot articulate why. One of Jung's sufferers defined it as dwelling in a regular storm of understanding. She ought to experience the whole thing approximately all and sundry, but couldn't translate it into words or actions. The records came too fast, too sturdy, and too jumbled for her aware mind to process. The shadow aspect of clean sight. One in all Jung's most vital discoveries become about what he called shadow projection, and how it specially goals tremendously perceptive human beings. The shadow in Jung's psychology is all of the elements of ourselves we do not want to well known. Our selfishness, our anger, our vulnerability, our desires we don't forget unacceptable. The majority spend substantial strength preserving their shadow, hidden not simply from others, however, from themselves. But especially perceptive people can see shadows, no longer consciously or deliberately. They really feel what is hidden. They pick out up at the anger under the calm outside, the lack of confidence beneath the arrogance, the want under the independence. Whilst someone's shadow is seen by using any other man or woman, the unconscious thoughts perceives this as a threat, and the most commonplace response to this chance is to assault the individual that sees it. Jung documented this sample again and again. A perceptive man or woman might gently point out that someone seemed confused or sad, and that character might explode at them for being terrible. That they had explicit subject about a hassle everyone else became ignoring, and they would be accused of creating drama. That they had tried to assist by pointing out patterns, and they'd be classified as judgmental or crucial. What's really taking place in those moments is shadow projection. The character whose shadow has been seen tasks their own disowned qualities onto the perceptive individual. If a person is angry, however, might not admit it, they'll accuse the perceptive character of being angry. If someone is being judgmental whilst pretending to be accepting, they may name the perceptive man or woman judgmental. This creates a devastating cycle. The extra truly someone sees, the more they come to be a goal for others' projections. They become the scapegoat, the hassle person, the one who's continually causing troubles when in fact they're truly reflecting what's already there. Jung wrote, "The bearer of awareness will become the bearer of anyone's unconscious. They bring about no longer simply their own shadow, but the shadows of every body round them. Whilst perception will become overwhelming, Jung recognized three precise dangers that especially perceptive human beings face, everyone capable of destroying their mental properly, being, if not well understood and controlled. The primary threat is what happens to social organizations while a person sees too much. Every own family, place of work, and network keeps itself via unstated agreements approximately what will and may not be recounted. The alcoholism that everyone pretends isn't occurring. The marriage that everybody knows is bothered, however treats as best. The disorder that's turned out to be so ordinary that pointing it out seems crazy. While someone cannot help, however, see these hidden truths, they become a hazard to the group's stability. Now not due to the fact they're seeking to motive troubles, but due to the fact their very presence makes denial more difficult to maintain. They are like a mild in a room wherein all of us has agreed to hold the darkness. Jung observed that Those individuals regularly discover themselves mysteriously excluded from corporations, now not through any apparent battle but via diffused distancing. Invites stop coming, conversations stop after they enter the room. They are labeled as difficult or too severe without how what they have got achieved wrong. The second hazard is the profound isolation that comes from seeing a special truth than anyone around you. Imagine residing in a global where absolutely everyone else is colorblind and you are the only one that sees color. You try and describe the purple sundown, the blue ocean, the inexperienced trees, however others think you're making matters up or being dramatic. This is the each-day revel-in of noticeably perceptive people. They see emotional hues that others don't understand. They be aware relationship dynamics that others leave out. They sense tensions that others deny exist, and the more they try to proportion their perceptions, the extra isolated they turn out to be. Jung wrote about one affected person who defined it as residing at the back of glass. She should see all and sundry, but felt like no person should clearly see her. She should understand others deeply, however felt fundamentally misunderstood herself. The 1/3 and maximum severe danger is dropping yourself completely. When you're continuously soaking up others' emotions, seeing others' shadows, feeling others' bodily states, where does their enjoy cease and yours start? Jung called this participation mystique, a nation wherein man or woman obstacles dissolve, and you become psychologically merged along with your environment. You not have your very own emotions, just the emotions you've got absorbed. You don't have your very own mind, simply responses to what you're picking up from others. You lose your character identity inside the flood of external enter. That is why such a lot of highly perceptive human beings warfare with simple questions like what do I want, or how do I experience. They've come to be so attuned to others that they have got misplaced touch with themselves. The hidden cause of your perception. Here's in which Jung's discovery turns into innovative. He realized that highly perceptive humans are not damaged or disordered. They may be evolutionarily vital. At some stage in records, every society has had those who may want to see what others couldn't. The shamans who sensed infection earlier than it manifested. The prophets who perceived social problems earlier than they exploded. The artists who captured hidden truths in their paintings. The healers who knew intuitively what others needed. Jung believed those people function what he referred to as consciousness pioneers. Human beings whose mental improvement is beforehand of their time. They see what humanity will finally want to look, however, isn't always equipped to renowned but consider major social modifications in the course of records. Earlier than slavery became abolished, there had been folks who ought to see its evil whilst society taken into consideration it every day. Before girls were given the vote, there have been those who perceived the injustice in their exclusion. Earlier than we understood baby psychology, there were folks who sensed that kids wanted extra than simply discipline and obedience. Those perceptive people did not create those truths. They simply saw them before others had been geared up to, and that they frequently paid a heavy charge for their early sight. Jung wrote, "What appears as psychological insight inside the man or woman today turns into cultural transformation the next day. The relatively perceptive man or woman isn't always diseased. They're sincerely early. This means your overwhelming perception may not be a curse to be cured. However, a present that hasn't discovered its proper context yet. You're not too touchy for the arena. You're sensitive to things the world desires to eventually well known. Learning to manage your present." Jung developed specific techniques for relatively perceptive humans to hold their sanity and well-being without shutting down their perception. He known as this process-aware integration, learning to work along with your belief instead of being beaten by it. The first step is what Jung referred to as differentiation, learning to distinguish between what is yours and what you're choosing up from others. This requires ordinary solitude, time absolutely alone where you can permit all the absorbed material settle and locate your very own voice once more. Jung encouraged an everyday practice. Spend at least an hour on my own without any input from others. No conversations, no texts, no social media, just you and your own mind and feelings. Before everything, this could sense uncomfortable or even frightening. You may understand you do not know what you believe you studied or feel while you're not responding to others, but progressively your own true voice will emerge. You'll start to understand the difference among I sense unhappy and I am sporting a person else's sadness. You may distinguish among your very own anxiety and the anxiety you've got absorbed out of your surroundings. The second step entails what Jung called shadow paintings, looking at your personal hidden factors. This might appear counterintuitive. If you can see all people else's shadows so clearly, why do you want to examine your very own? Jung determined that the clearer you see others' shadows, the greater essential it is to renounce your very own. Why? Because we are able to best see in others what exists in ourselves, even though best as capability. If you can see a person's hidden anger, it's due to the fact you understand anger. If you may perceive a person's denied vulnerability, it is because you realize what vulnerability feels like. This does not suggest you've got the same issues as everybody you understand, but it method you comprise the full spectrum of human revel in, similar to all of us else. The difference is that you're greater aware of it. By way of acknowledging your very own shadow, your personal capacity for the whole thing you see in others, you stop being disturbed via what you understand. You may see a person's selfishness without being brought about because you've got stated your personal egocentric capacity. You could witness a person's pain without being overwhelmed due to the fact you faced your own. The 33 step is growing what Jung referred to as containers, mental systems that permit you to keep what you perceive without being flooded by it. Think of it like having a great submitting machine rather than letting all of the papers pile up to your table. One method is to assign unique instances for processing what you've picked up. Instead of carrying each person's feelings all day, you would possibly set apart 30 minutes every evening to consciously assessment what you've got absorbed, acknowledge it, and then let it pass. Any other technique is visualization. Jung had patients believe a membrane round themselves, permeable enough to permit information in, however solid sufficient to maintain them from being overwhelmed. Or they could visualize a library wherein they could keep others' feelings and shadows, acknowledging them however now not wearing them, locating your human beings. One in every of Jung's maximum vital insights became that tremendously perceptive people need very specific kinds of relationships to thrive. No longer everybody can manage being surely seen, and now not all people merits access for your complete notion. Jung recognized 3 sorts of folks who can certainly connect with notably perceptive people. The first institution is other enormously perceptive human beings who have discovered to control their gift. Jung wrote, "When 2 aware individuals meet, there's instantaneous reputation. No masks are needed because both can see through masks besides. No pretense is required because each recognize the futility of pretense. These relationships regularly experience excellent to fairly perceptive people who have spent their lives feeling remoted. In the end, a person who speaks their language, who sees what they see, who does not require steady translation or explanation. The second group is people actively working on their own attention. Those is probably people in therapy, people devoted to non-secular boom, or those who have faced fundamental life challenges that force them to look deeper. They may not have the same perceptive items, however they value focus and are not threatened by way of being visible. Jung referred to that these human beings frequently are trying to find out notably perceptive individuals as soon as they may be geared up to face their shadows. They recognize having a person who can see what they may be suffering to see in themselves. The 0-33 group is what Jung called herbal bins, those who might not be specifically perceptive or aware themselves, but who have a natural balance and groundedness that permits them to be around excessive perception without being overwhelmed or threatened. Those might be people who have lived through extensive difficulty and advanced resilience, or people with such strong self-knowledge that they're not threatened via being visible. They function anchors for rather perceptive people, imparting balance in the typhoon of perception. The transformation process. Jung located that notably perceptive human beings go through predictable stages as they learn how to combine their present know how these tiers allow you to understand in which you are for your own adventure. The first stage is commonly denial and suppression. Many notably perceptive people spend years trying to close down their notion to be ordinary to fit in. They may use substances to numb their sensitivity, throw themselves into busy hobby to keep away from feeling, or develop rigid rational questioning to discount their intuitions. This stage in no way works long time. The notion would not leave. It simply is going underground, regularly manifesting as anxiety, melancholy, or bodily infection. Jung wrote, "What we withstand persists. What we deny controls us from the shadows." The second stage is overwhelming focus. This regularly takes place while the denial breaks down, possibly through a crisis, a breakdown, or sincerely exhaustion from fighting against their nature. Unexpectedly, the person is flooded with all of the notion they have been suppressing. They see the whole lot, sense the whole thing, and don't have any tools to manipulate it. That is often when highly perceptive people searching for help, wondering something is wrong with them. They might be recognized with numerous issues: anxiety, melancholy, bipolar, while what's honestly occurring is unintegrated perception breaking through. The 1/3 level is aware studying. This is whilst the man or woman starts to apprehend their perception as a gift rather than a curse and starts off-evolved gaining knowledge of unique equipment to control it. They examine differentiation, increase bins, and begin selecting while and a way to use their perception rather than being at its mercy. This level entails numerous trial and blunders. What works for one fantastically perceptive character might not paintings for every other. It is a procedure of coming across your own precise way of working with your present. The fourth stage is incorporated carrier. That is whilst the belief will become a device for assisting others instead of a burden to bear. The person has discovered to control their present properly sufficient that they are able to use it consciously and constructively. Jung discovered that human beings at this degree often find their lifestyle's purpose. They come to be therapists, healers, artists, instructors, roles wherein their belief serves others. However, not like in earlier tiers, they're no longer depleted through this carrier because they've learned to keep their limitations and top off their own. Properly, the final level is what Jung called transcendent feature, while the notion turns into so incorporated that it is actually part of who they are. They not battle with it or maybe think about it a lot. They see what they see, recognize what they know, and reply accurately without drama or problem. Human beings at this degree have a quality of non-violent presence. They can be around intense feelings without being crushed. They can see shadows without being brought on. They are able to perceive trouble without feeling forced to repair everything. They have learned to be a clean replicate without taking up what they reflect. Common pitfalls and the way to avoid them. Jung documented numerous commonplace mistakes that tremendously perceptive human beings make as they're studying to control their gift. Knowledge these assist you to avoid years of unnecessary warfare. The first pitfall is what Jung referred to as the savior complex. This takes place when perceptive people trust they should use their gift to store each person around them. They see others' pain and sense answerable for fixing it. They understand issues and experience obligated to resolve them. This never works. First, because the majority do not want to be stored. They want to be seen and honored as their Second, due to the fact taking responsibility for others' psychological work prevents them from growing. And third, as it's hard and impossible to save everyone. Jung wrote, "The helper who can't say no will become the helped." The savior who cannot set boundaries becomes the only desiring salvation. The second pitfall